What is it? What happened?
Sit down, Pat.
It's David. His hearing went badly, didn't it?
No, not at all. Everything went as I thought it would for David. I'm afraid the problem concerns you.
What do you mean?
Our friend Herbie.
Oh, no.
He amended his statement.
He told them I saw David.
Yes.
What do we do now?
Well, we can go on with the appeal. I'm still quite happy to represent you.
You don't seem very confident.
I'm sorry, I can't be. The court will take a very dim view of your perjury, and we've virtually lost before we've even started.
Sit down, Pat.
Something's wrong.
Pat, David hanged himself in his cell. He died an hour ago.
Give us a game, Bee. Look, it don't look like Pat'll be back for a while.
It's nearly an hour. Of course, I reckon Mrs. Jackson knows what's going on.
Look, I told you before, Smith.
She doesn't know.
Michael.
Doesn't take much intelligence to know it's nothing good.
Well, it'd be something to do with a pill, wouldn't it?
Oh, come on. She's already told you they had the gong.
Maybe the cops have come up with something else. Maybe they found new evidence that proves she's not guilty.
Don't be stupid.
Well, I don't know. After all, she never done nothing wrong in the first place, did she? Well, it wasn't her fault her old man lobbed on her after he'd done over the warehouse.
What are you up to, Latham? 5 minutes ago, you wouldn't give Pat the time of day.
I just reckon she's had enough of it, that's all.
Yeah, well, you'd know all about that, wouldn't you?
She's in shock. She should be dealt with Dr. Miller. She said she doesn't want to. Anyway, Meg, you're off duty now. Pat, what's wrong?
Shut up, Latham. She'll tell us in her own good time.
Good evening, and now for the main stories. There seems to be no end in sight over the problems facing...
How did you find O'Connell?
Dazed, in shock. You saw her yourself. You can't expect her to get over it in 5 minutes.
Have you any suggestions how we should handle her?
There's nothing much that we can do for the present. Grief is a very private thing.
What about the future?
I'd suggest that you handle her very carefully. She's gone through a lot over the years for the sake of her family. Particularly for David. I gather that she was closer to him than the others.
Yes, she went to great lengths to see him.
Oh, the arrangements for her to attend the funeral.
Well, you'll have to clear it through the department.
Already done. No problem in light of her previous record.
Well, they could hardly deny her the last opportunity of saying goodbye to her son.
Well, they're not letting the father attend. It's amazing, isn't it? If the courts had only considered the close family bond, she wouldn't have been here in the first place. Still, there's no point dwelling in the past, is there?
We're so helpless, aren't we? Good night, Mr. Reed.
Yes, good night.
Calling us a day?
I've just been to see Paul Reed about O'Connell.
I was rather surprised she went straight back to the recreation room.
Well, that's what she wanted.
Is there any chance that she'll be able to attend the funeral?
Mr. Reed's made the necessary arrangements.
Oh, so quickly.
He'd been on to the department about Mr. O'Connell, but Pendrith advised against it.
Certainly seems efficient.
Oh, is there anything wrong with that?
No, but I think it's going to take more than efficiency to deal with Pat O'Connell.
Well, as a social worker, I'm sure he's taken that into account.
I hope so. With all that she's been through, it amazes me she's still sane.
The David O'Connell case took a surprise turn this afternoon. As a result of evidence given by Dr. Gregory Miller, Mr. Herbert Smith, chief witness for the Crown, changed his testimony. Miller revealed that Smith had visited his surgery during the time he claimed he was held by
it was
O'Connell.
Greg.
Now, faced with this
Shut up,
evidence,
Latham.
Smith broke down and made a full confession. His revised testimony included evidence that O'Connell's mother visited him during the time he was at large. A late report just to hand, David O'Connell was found dead in his prison cell shortly after 3:30 this afternoon. There were no suspicious circumstances.
You see? It's all right. No one's to blame. No suspicious circumstances.
Love. Pat, it's better this way, Pat. Pat, he was... Well, I mean, what did he have to look forward to, Pat? 50 years in the loony bin? Chrissy! He's better off. He's better off, Pat. He's better off, Pat. He's better off, Pat.
Better off? He's dead. You bitch. Davey's dead. Oh, my God.
O'Connell, this isn't going to hold a thing. Now get in here.
What's going on?
Oh, Doc, O'Connell attacked her.
Nurse.
Oh, Doc, my head, quick.
Calm down.
She tried to kill me, Doc.
Just calm down.
You keep her away from me.
Come into the hospital.
No,
It's not serious.
It's off her head.
Give her a painkiller. Bandage the wound. It won't need stitches, all right?
I was only trying to...
What the hell happened?
David O'Connell suicided this afternoon.
Sit down, Pat.
You kill him. It's your fault, Davey said. You killed Davey. It didn't matter to you, did it? Nothing.
Get her a sedative before she does anything else.
You didn't mind.
Hurry, Greg.
And it's true that O'Connell attacked you.
Oh, she only grabbed my hair.
How would you describe her condition this morning?
Hostile, but she's grief-stricken. She doesn't know what she's doing or saying.
Do you think she's likely to repeat last night's episode?
I don't know. It would be wise to keep her under observation for a few days.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. I'm sorry you've been put through all this.
No.
Would you ask Meg to bring in O'Connell?
Yes, Mrs. Davidson.
Latham explained why you attacked her. Whilst I do not approve of the action, it is understandable. You also attacked a member of staff. I would like an undertaking from you that this will not be repeated.
Then you'd better not let me anywhere near Dr. Miller again.
Is that a threat?
If you like. All I know is my son's dead and Dr. Miller killed him. And when I get out of here...
In that case, you leave me no alternative.
To what?
You were to be released for the day to attend your son's funeral. In the light of your recent behavior, that is now impossible.
Anything else you'd like to do for me?
Take her away.
Well, how are you feeling?
I must have a hard old head. Here, Doc, is the baby going to be all right?
Yes, of course it is.
Oh, here, lay off, Doc. What are you trying to do to me? Well, how is it?
Oh, you'll live.
Can I go back to the laundry, then?
I'd have thought that was the last place you'd want to go.
Ew, what do you mean? I was the one that was attacked, you know, not the other way round. You sticking up for Pat?
Has it occurred to you that maybe you provoked her?
Oh, I didn't mean it like it sounded. It's just that...
Well, what did the poor bugger have to look forward to anyway?
Well, I doubt whether the women will see it like that.
So they won't. So what? Anyhow, they're more likely to be angry with you after the way you shot Pat.
You can go back to the laundry if you wish. You're fit.
Thank you.
Oh, if you should develop any symptoms, nausea, dizziness, severe headache, come back.
Here, Doc, you're not here for much longer, are you?
No.
I reckon you won't be sorry to see the back of this place.
I'm sorry about your son, Pat.
Really? Thanks, Mrs. Jackson. Thanks a lot.
There's still time. You've got a good record. Now, if you could prove to Mrs. Davidson that you could be trusted, then she might change her mind about the funeral.
Funny, isn't it? I've been a model prisoner, but when it comes to the crunch, it's not worth a cracker, is it?
Morning, lady. You all right?
Go on, Mrs. Jackson, tell him. I'm a danger to society. Mrs. Davidson reckons I might attack the priest.
Last night, Pat attacked Latham and Dr. Miller. Mrs. Davidson feels she could be a problem if she goes to the funeral.
Is Mrs. Davidson in her office?
Yes.
Thank you.
Detective Sergeant Little. I see, thank you.
Mrs. Davidson, I'd like a word with you.
Just a moment. I take it the matter is urgent.
Yes, it is.
Wendy, could you tell Detective Little I'll phone him back? Thank you.
I understand that you've cancelled O'Connell's compassionate leave.
That is correct. She attacked another prisoner.
Yes, but that's hardly enough reason to stop her from saying goodbye to her son.
If she's likely to be dangerous, I can hardly take the risk.
Dangerous, dangerous. Dangerous to whom? You know her record as well as I do. Do you seriously believe she's going to try something at her own son's funeral?
Can you guarantee that she will not? I gathered from our conversation last night that, in your opinion, O'Connell was not going to cause any more trouble.
Mrs. Davidson, I'm employed here as a social worker, not a clairvoyant. However, I would be very surprised if O'Connell attacked anyone with that extreme provocation.
If O'Connell causes trouble, she will jeopardize compassionate leave for other prisoners. Surely you find that important?
What I find important now is Mrs. O'Connell's right to say goodbye to her son.
Compassionate leave is a privilege, not a right.
She has lost her son. She will never see him again. Can you deny her that right?
Can you guarantee she will not abuse her leave?
Mrs. Davidson, I can't guarantee anything, but you know as well, better than I do, that Mrs. O'Connell is not a violent person. Now, please, give her a chance.
I hope you are right.
I'm sure I am, and thank you. Oh, Coulson and Birdsworth, I'd like to see them sometime today, if that's possible.
Are you sure there isn't anything else?
No, that's all for the moment.
What do you want?
I heard them bring you in last night. Well, tell me what happened.
Talk to me, please. I'm going crazy in here. What's wrong?
Nothing's wrong.
What are you doing up here, then?
Who's there?
Shut up, Constance.
Miss Bennett, tell me what's going on. Why is Pat up here?
Jungle telegraph broken down, has it?
O'Connell, come here.
What are you whispering for, Miss Bennett?
I didn't think you'd want private matters spread all over the prison.
What difference does it make?
You'll be attending the funeral this afternoon. Did you hear what I said?
Yes, I heard.
They'll be collecting you at 3 o'clock.
You'd reckon they'd tell us something, wouldn't you?
Oh, now, why would they? It's like a bonus in Vera's pay, be able to keep us in the dark.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's Doc Miller's fault. Finding out he shopped her was about the last straw, I reckon.
He didn't know what he was doing, B.
Ah, bullshit.
We'll get a move on. I thought you'd be anxious to get back to your friends.
Roughing up a pregnant lady.
I imagine I can leave the rough stuff to you, Smith.
Okay, spill it. What happened to Pat?
Yeah, spit it out, you dirty
I
little
thought the
lagger.
officers were here to protect us, Miss Bennett.
You're on your own, Latham. Birdsworth,
I never laid a finger on her.
shut up and get outside.
Just when it was getting interesting.
Run into a chair.
You know bloody well what happened.
Still keen on dressmaking.
Look, I know it's a bit late, B, but I'm really sorry for what I said to Pat. And I
Oh,
didn't think-
yeah.
I mean it, honest. I mean, if there was anything I could do, B, I'd do it. I
Did
swear.
you tell the screws why Pat laid into you?
Yeah, I swear I did, but by that time it was too late. I mean, she'd already attacked the dog, so it didn't make no difference.
You have turned over a new leaf, haven't you? Nagging yourself.
Like I said.
What's the matter? You frightened of what Pat's going to do to you when she surfaces?
She's off her head, B. We're going to have to stick together, aren't we? Well, I mean, she won't do nothing while you're around, will she?
Fancy you asking me for protection.
And that's about all I can tell you, Lizzie.
Of course, we could all have guessed about Pat, but Doc Miller. Don't suppose he'd be able to cope with this place now after all that's happened.
Yeah, that wouldn't be easy. Well, now, have you thought any more about your parole?
Nope. And I'm not gonna.
Lizzie, just one, please. Remember what happened last time?
Thanks, Paul.
You know, Lizzie, if you put your mind to it, there are a lot of things that you could do on the outside.
Like what?
Like looking after Doreen for a start.
Come to think of it, I haven't heard from her for weeks. She's not getting into any trouble, is she?
Oh, you would have heard if she was. But you were pretty good mates, weren't you? Like mother and daughter. Well, don't you miss her?
Of course I do. But that halfway house joint, I don't like the sound of it.
Why not?
Bet it's a dump. Rats and cockroaches. At least this place is clean. Have you seen it yet?
No, not yet.
Why don't you go and check it out for me?
There's not much point if you don't want to get out.
Oh, go on. No harm in having a gander. And then you could see Dora and come back and tell me how she's getting on.
All right, if I do, will you think about your parole?
It's a deal. My mouth's watering thinking of that first drink.
Sorry, Lizzie, more customers. I'll get back to you about that halfway house business.
Thanks, Paul.
Coulson to see you.
Sit down, Rosalind.
She's to go straight back to solitary when you've finished with her.
Oh, thank you, Miss Bennett. I'm aware of that.
She is a murderess, Mr. Reed, and should be treated as such. Although I doubt she will be in here.
Sit down, please.
Look, Mr. Reed, I've been cooped up in that pound for days. I can't stand it. I mean, there's no one to talk to, nothing to do except stare at the walls. I'll go off my head if I stay in there any longer.
And if you were to get out, what would you do?
Well, I was doing HSC. I think it's possible to do it by correspondence. Then when I get out, I could go to university.
That's a good idea. You could be out in 5 years with remissions. The question is, could you put up with it for that long?
Oh, yes, I'm sure I could. Well, Mrs. Davidson had helped me. She said she would. Couldn't you talk to her? Make her realize I've changed?
Oh, I certainly intend to talk to her about you, Rosalind, and I will make my recommendations.
Do you think you could get me out of solitary?
Rosalind, I can promise you that you won't have to spend a minute more in solitary than you need to.
Mr. Reed, that's Paul to his mates, told me what's going to be like when I get out. I'm going to look after Doreen.
Get her into trouble, more likely.
Oh, knock it off, Bea. After all, if she wants to get out...
You know, I liked you better when you were nasty.
He tell you about the money you get when you get out, Lizzie?
Me pension?
Yeah, well, sort of. They give you that so you get on your feet again. $50, bit more maybe.
50 smackaroos?
Yeah. Here, don't you go spending it all on booze now, do you?
Let me see. A bottle of gin used to cost 19 6. That's $2 in the new money. Probably more now, say $3. That means I can have a bottle a night for 2 weeks and still have plenty left over.
And I thought you were going to dig your heels in and stay here.
Oh, not now. I reckon I'll make it. I'm going to set the outside on fire.
When could I see Birdsworth?
It really is urgent.
It is. The sooner we can complete the questioning, the sooner we can get the investigations underway.
If I understand you correctly, you're reopening a case which was closed nearly 20 years ago.
That's correct.
Lizzie Birdsworth is due for her parole in the next few weeks. She's a very old lady. This could upset her, having it all dragged up again.
Mrs. Davidson, the implications for Birdsworth are extremely serious.
What do you suggest I tell her?
Nothing. The only way to get at the truth is to keep her in the dark as much as possible. Otherwise...
Otherwise?
She may see some advantage in not telling the truth.
Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive them who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Since Almighty God has called our brother David from this life unto himself, we commit his body to the earth from which it was made. Christ was the first to rise from the dead, and we know that he will raise up our mortal bodies to be like his in glory. We commend our brother David to the Lord. May the Lord receive him into his peace and raise up his body on the last day.
I see O'Connell arrived back safely.
Yes.
Something wrong?
I know she's just lost her son and she's bound to take it hard, but I don't know, she seems different somehow.
Bitter?
No, worse than that.
I hope I did the right thing putting her in solitary.
Why don't you call in the Wonder Boy? I'm sure he could tell you what was best.
I take it you don't approve of Mr. Reed's methods.
Not exactly. The women here think that he'll let out of their hands. And from what I gather, that's exactly what he's doing. He saw Coulson this morning. He'll probably breeze in and tell us she needs lots of fresh air and exercise rather than a stint in solitary.
Oh, Mrs. Davidson, can I have a word with you, please?
Of course, sit down.
If that's all,
No,
Mrs. Davidson.
don't go. There's no reason why you shouldn't be in on this, too.
Thanks.
But Colson, she's little more than a child, full of ideals and dreams.
She also shot a woman in cold blood, broke out of this prison and drugged half the staff.
And apparently, she also saved Mrs. Davidson's life.
That has been taken into account.
However, if you don't mind my saying so, Mrs. Davidson, I think your gratitude has had a very bad effect on Rosalind.
In what way?
Oh, she has yet to learn that she must suffer the consequences of her actions. Therefore, my recommendation is that she spend the maximum period in solitary confinement. Surprised? I'd be happy to discuss it with the VJ if you think it's necessary.
How do you think Colson will take it?
Oh, she will be resentful at first, but once she's learned, I'm sure she'll settle down.
I hope you're right.
Well, I can't make any guarantees, but I think it should do the trick. Dr. Miller? Paul Reed.
Oh, yes, of course. Nice to meet you. Take a seat.
Thank you. Well, it doesn't look as if we'll get much chance to get to know each other.
No, my last day.
Things can't have been easy for you. I'd like to ask a favor of you.
Oh, well, ask away.
It concerns Elizabeth Birdsworth.
Ah.
Yeah, quite a charmer, isn't she?
Yes, as long as you don't happen to be her doctor.
As you know, she's coming up for parole very shortly, and she's asked me to check out this halfway house, make sure it's fit for human habitation.
Well, certainly habitable at the moment.
No, I'll take your word for it, but I did promise Lizzie. I don't want to go barging in until they get to know me.
Well, I was planning on dropping in there today, actually. Why don't you join me? I could introduce you if that would help.
Fine, thank you.
All right, good. This is certainly going to find it strange after being inside for so long.
Well, at least she's now looking forward to it rather than being frightened of it, and believe you me, that's half the battle.
Oh, I believe you.
Hey, look, we're going to see Mr. Reed.
Wrong again, Birdsworth.
Well, where are we going?
Detective Sergeant Little wants to speak to you.
Oh, Copper, why? I ain't done nothing.
Well, at least they've got a decent-sized garden. Fond memories?
Oh, mixed bag, really. Some good times, some bad.
Like Wentworth?
Yes. Wish I could say I was sorry to be leaving, but yes, there were good times.
It'll be a relief just the same.
Just start shrinking my head.
Doreen Anderson, isn't it?
If she's in, yes.
Dr. Miller! I was wondering if we'd see you before you left.
Hello, Betty. This is Paul Reed. He's the new social worker at Wentworth. Paul, Betty Stevens.
Nice to meet you, Betty.
Hello.
Is Doreen in?
Sorry, Doc. She's got a job. Won't be back for, a couple of hours yet.
Oh, well, it doesn't matter particularly. I just wanted to tell you about the new doctor who's taking over from me temporarily.
Yeah?
His name's Dr. Herbert, and he's prepared to look into any emergencies. That's his card.
Oh, right. Thanks. I'll let Doreen know when she gets home. All the best, Doc.
Betty, would you mind if Mr. Reed had a look over the place?
Well...
I know it's an imposition, but Lizzie Birdsworth's coming out very shortly. She's a friend of Doreen's, and she'll probably be staying here.
Lizzie Birdsworth? I'm dying to meet her. And Doreen will go mad when she hears she's getting out. Come in. I'll make you a cup of coffee.
Now, Mrs. Birdsworth, tell me again precisely what happened on the evening of November the 18th, 1962.
I told you all that years ago. What do you want to go dragging it all up again for?
Just answer the question. Now, the shearers teased you about your cooking, and you decided to teach them a lesson. Is that correct? Answer yes or no.
Yes. The shearers teased me about me cooking, and I wanted to teach them a lesson.
Right. So, what did you do?
I bought some rat stuff.
You say you bought it?
All right. I pinched it from the stores. There was a lot of call for rat stuff in those days.
And what did you do then?
I was making a stew, so I thought, I'll show 'em. So I put some in the gravy.
How much?
Oh, God, I can't remember. A couple of spoonfuls.
I see. And did you have any idea how much it would take to kill a man?
I told you. I didn't want to kill anyone. I just wanted to give them a fright.
How much poison did you put in the stew?
Do you know how old I am? 71. All this happened bloody years ago. I've served my time. I told him all I knew at the trial. I can't remember what happened all those years ago.
How much poison did you put in the stew?
No! I'm not going to answer any more questions. Leave me be!
Sit down, Mrs. Birdsworth, and pull yourself together. Right. Now, let's start again, shall we? From the beginning.
Oh, hello, Meg. What can I do for you?
I was wondering if any arrangements had been made for Greg's farewell.
Oh, it completely slipped my mind. I suggest you ask everyone to come in here for a drink after work tonight.
Fine. I'll make sure everyone's invited.
Oh, and Meg, it might be a nice idea if we made this a formal welcome for Paul Reed, too.
Well, he seems to be making himself quite at home without us having to go to any bother.
You sound as if you've been talking to Mr. Fletcher.
How is he? How's he getting on, Paul Reed?
He's leaving no stone unturned.
Well, you seem quite happy about it.
I am. Or rather, I feel I ought to be. It's just so irritating to have someone so constantly and indestructibly right.
Well, maybe if we get him drunk tonight, he might reveal some awful family skeleton.
I doubt whether he'd have one.
Well, I better get a move on, or else everyone will have gone. No rest for the wicked.
Nope. What can I do for you, Meg?
Well, it's more what I can do for you. How about drinks in the governor's office after work?
Oh.
Well, what's wrong?
I'm just not in the mood for compulsory gaiety with the governor.
Well, no one's going to force you.
Oh, I know. It's just... Well, I'd rather just slink out of here. No fanfare, no drums.
I think we're entitled to the pleasure of thanking you for what you've done and wishing you the best.
Can't you see? That's exactly why I don't want to see the rest of the staff. I made a complete botch of this job.
Oh, in what way?
What, apart from the O'Connell business, do you mean?
Oh, come on, Greg. Your evidence...
My evidence caused all the trouble. And Pat. Poor bloody Pat. At least she had something to look forward to. She would have got off her sentence. And thanks to my sense of right, her son is dead.
Even if you knew the consequences, would you have perjured yourself?
Oh, I don't know. Never going to have a chance to find out, am I?
Well, then stop torturing yourself. Drinks in Erica's office after work?
Oh, yes, all right.
Oh. If you're interested, there's drinks for Greg and Paul Reed in the office this evening.
Oh, great. I'll be there. Look, Meg, I was wondering if you'd care to have dinner sometime this week.
What?
Well, with Leda and me, of course. Meg, we have to work together. And I just thought that...
What did you think?
Well, I expect that you'll miss Greg quite a bit.
Yes, I will. Gentlemen seem to be fairly scarce these days.
Can't we bury the hatchet? I know you think I did the dirty on you with Jeff, but
I prefer to drop the subject.
Well, I wouldn't. I'd rather not have all this bad blood between us. And now that Greg's going,
You thought I'd be in need of some comfort.
Well, I know that you and Greg were
Oh,
close.
I didn't think you'd be shy of a little plain talking. Greg and I had an affair, if that's what you mean.
Well, if you'd rather drop the subject, I don't...
No, I'd like to get things straight, once and for all. Look, I don't need your pity, nor your friendship. And I'd very much appreciate it if you'd keep your sympathy to yourself. I wouldn't be surprised if you needed it.
What's up, Mrs. Jackson?
Oh, I'm just letting off steam. Oh, look, there's a party in the governor's office this evening. Can you make it?
Oh, yes. What's the occasion?
Well, Greg's leaving and Paul Reed's late welcome. Will you tell the rest of the staff if they pass through?
Sure.
Paul?
Yes, Mrs. Jackson?
Could you join us for drinks this evening?
Drinks, what for?
Well, Greg Miller's leaving and we'd like to welcome you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I realise it's rather late.
Yes, I'm afraid I've got other plans.
Not worth knowing if they're like that.
Suppose not.
What's that detective after, Miss Bennett?
You'd know better than me.
What do you mean?
Looks like your past is catching up with you, doesn't it?
I've served me time. I got to see the doc.
There's nothing wrong with you, Birdsworth.
I got to see the doc. Mrs. Davidson said I could. I'm on my last legs, Mrs. Bennett.
All right, but make it snappy.
Doc, reckon I just caught you.
Don't you ever knock?
Oh, it wouldn't be my old Doc Miller if you didn't say that.
Birdsworth, you've got 5 minutes.
Well, what is it, Lizzie?
Oh, just thought I'd come and see if you had plenty of my old heart pills.
Look, plenty. Enough for half a dozen attacks.
Oh, don't joke about it, Doc. I might be needing them sooner than you think. When are you leaving?
Tonight.
Give our love to Karen, won't you?
Yes, of course I will.
And keep some for yourself, eh? And Doc, I want you to know, no hard feelings. I mean, about Pat. You couldn't help it. Oh, well, I better be going. Old Bennett will be out there with a stopwatch. Doc, I want you to know you're real love.
You'd think they could have done better than this, wouldn't you? There's peanut butter and Vegemite.
Well, the kitchen staff are not employed to make cocktail snacks.
You're in a very good humour, Mrs. Davidson.
Shouldn't I be?
Well, I suppose with Mr. Reed solving all our problems, you've got reason.
Sherry?
Thank you. Oh, this is a poor show.
Well, it's the thought that counts. I don't think Greg expects an elaborate affair.
But what about the atmosphere?
What do you mean?
Meg and Mr. Fletcher aren't getting on very well these days, and Dr. Miller isn't exactly on good terms with him either. And I doubt whether any of the staff approve of the way that Mr. Reed has been breaking all the rules.
Oh, well, I'm sure you'll make up for all their shortcomings.
Oh, where's the guest of honour?
Sherry, Mr. Fletcher.
Ah, thanks, Mr. Davidson.
Evening, Mrs. Davidson.
Oh.
Vera, Jim.
Mr. Reed
Greg?
not coming?
Thank you.
No. He was awfully rude, wasn't he, Mrs. Jackson? Just rushed out the door.
Thank you very much.
Well, as we've all gathered here, I would like to propose a toast to Greg. To Greg.
Greg.
Somebody like some favourites?
Yes, I think the kitchen staff have done very nicely, haven't they?
Thank you for all you've done, Greg. I wish you the very best of luck.
Thanks, Erica.
Yeah, good luck, Greg. No hard feelings, eh?
No, of course not. Bye, Vera.
Greg?
Bye, all.
Send us a postcard, hey? Oh, I bet you get a terrific tan.
Oh, thanks, Sally. Meg?
I'll see you to the gate.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, anyone like another drink?
Oh, I won't, thank you. Oh, I'd like to.
Right.
Well, that wasn't the most exciting party I've ever been to.
I don't know. Everyone stayed true to form, all in their rightful place. Except Sally, of course.
Saying goodbye isn't easy for anyone. And I suppose we all cope with it in our different ways.
Do you forgive me?
For what?
When we broke up, I had the feeling you were being too brave, that's all.
I was very hurt. I enjoyed the times we had together. But it's past now, Greg.
I bet you won't even miss me.
Of course I will. As a friend. And as a friend, I will always be sad that you felt that you were a failure at Wentworth.
I'll try not to.
Trying's not good enough. Now, you're not a failure, and you must never, ever feel guilty.
Meg.
This is as far as I go. Give my love to Karen. Godspeed.
So you stirred the poison into the gravy, but you didn't mean to kill the shearers.
That's right.
We must have the truth, Mrs. Birdsworth. Well, I'm glad you understand. Now, you were on an 8-week contract, correct?
That's right.
And what about the shearers?
We was all the same. Union rules.
And you were due to be paid?
The contract was nearly finished.
Have you any idea how much money was owing to you and the shearers?
They was averaging about 40 quid a week. I was getting about 32.
How much would that make over 8 weeks?
Oh, God, I don't know. A hell of a lot.
It certainly was. About £2,000. Who paid you?
That bloody Ralph Campbell.
Ralph Campbell was the overseer, was he?
That's right.
So Ralph Campbell had over £2,000 in wages in his pocket.
That's right.
I wonder if you've any idea where that money went, Mrs. Birdsworth? Because it disappeared the very night those shearers died.
Ah, good morning, Miss Bennett. What can I do for you?
You're wanted in the governor's office in half an hour.
Not another cocktail party, is it?
Official, Mr. Reed.
Well, how were the drinks last night for Greg?
I didn't think you'd be interested.
Oh, I see. I've missed out on the social event of the Wentworth calendar, have I?
I'm sure it's nothing in comparison with your calendar. After all, it must have been something very important to make you so rude to Meg.
I'm sorry if I trod on any toes.
Not at all, Mr. Reed. In fact, I'm sure the staff will be very understanding. After all, if you have personal problems, they must come first.
Unlike you, Miss Bennett, my hours are 9 till 5. I see no reason to hang about or to waste my time in idle socializing.
Mrs. Davidson is expecting you at 10.
Why don't you go and lie down? You'll feel better.
Yeah. I don't reckon I could stomach the laundry.
Mrs. Jackson, could you come to the governor's office at 10?
Yes, of course.
What's all that about? Funny, isn't it, Mrs. Jackson? We don't know anything at all, do we?
Well, what do you mean?
Take me, for instance. I've been in here for nearly 20 years. And just when I think I'm getting out and starting a new life, what happens? They dig up a new crime to pin on me.
You don't know that's what it is.
Oh, yes, I do. First of all, I'm a murderer. And just when I finish paying for that, they think I can cop something more on me. A thief. A common thief. Oh, I don't mind so much. It's just that I think it's only fair they should tell me what they're going to pin on me.
You'll find out soon enough.
Soon enough's not soon enough. It's the waiting I can't stand. Do you think you could find out and put me out of my misery?
Well, I'll do the best I can. In the meantime, you sure you'll be all right?
Mm.
Thank you for coming. What I have to say concerns Lizzie Birdsworth. It is no secret that she has been intensively questioned by the police during the past 24 hours.
The third degree is more like it.
Unfortunately, it was necessary. Due to a deathbed confession, the police were obliged to reopen the case. It appears from the investigations that Lizzie Birdsworth may be innocent of the murder charge originally laid against her.
Give me roses. I wish he could again, but that was on the outside, and things were different then. On the inside, the sun still shines, and the rain falls down, but the sun prisoners too. When morning comes around, last night I dreamed we were together.
alone.